At Circuit World, we offer a wide selection of major appliances, name brands like Whirlpool, LG, Frigidaire, and more. Looking for furniture? Come by and browse our showroom or check out the Endless Aisle, a touchscreen kiosk with thousands of options. Need electronics, gaming computers, laptops, desktops, tablets? We have it all. OLED or QLED, 4K or high def. We have the selection to get you the TV of your dreams. And don't forget, at Circuit World, your credit is always good. So ask about our convenient payment options and 120 days same as cash. Come see us today at one of our 5 area locations.
Circuit World has 9-piece living room packages at incredible prices. Get this stylish sofa and love seat, 3 tables, 2 lamps, 43-inch 4K TV, and stand, all for only $1699.99 or $129.99 a month. Or get this 9-piece living room and reclining sofa and reclining love seat, now only $1999.99 or $149.99 a month. These packages are amazing. Stop in today at one of our 5 locations and get the furniture you've always wanted at Circuit World.
In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into Inside the Smoky Mountain Conference presented by Team FYN Sports. Jake West with Brandon Stevens. We are now on to round 3 of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association playoffs. We have 3 teams left standing, and 2 of them will face off against each other in a big-time showdown under the Big Oaks on Friday night. Big rematch of the Smoky Mountain Conference Championship game as Robbinsville and Swain County take the field. Murphy will travel to Mount Airy to play the Granite Bears, and there's 2 more games in between those 2 on the western side of the bracket. We'll go through all of them. Brandon, big week last week. We had some great individual performances, but I think Hunter Stalker's 5-touchdown night takes the cake.
That was a really big night to come out. I thought probably going into this one that we're going to see a little bit more out of the Bishop McGinnis villains. But, Jake, that was right from the beginning. That was one of those games where Murphy just established dominance early and came out striking fast. It was such a fast-paced game. Now, for me, I'm a meticulous note taker when I go into these football games. And I think the people who are watching me are like, how are you keeping up? Because there was almost like a no-huddle offense from the villains. Murphy's pretty slow, methodical. All right, we did the play. We'll waddle back to the huddle, shoot the breeze, watch the clock tick a little bit, talk to Joseph, talk to Heath, get our signs, move out, snap the ball, and you're like, the full 40 seconds clicks off the clock. This one was moving, and I think there was a lot of space or not a lot of space for mistakes, and the mistakes that were happening. Villains, I don't know how many times Camden Brazil got into the backfield, sacks, and then you had Brody Orton, Jude Pinkerton, who's the new guy coming in, freshman who's really made a name for himself in the last couple of games. Cadence Leatherwood. I mean, the whole cast really had defense was huge, and then you had a real big run by Cameron Clem, a non-offensive touchdown by Hunter Stalker, which started the whole evening. And Hunter Stalker was just a man. To your point, I think my count was about 10 to a dozen plays, 275 yards. There are varying views of that statistic. But Jake, the biggest problem that we had, and this is not casting aspersion on any official or anything like that, but it just seemed like the officials were just throwing the flag on every hold, on every play that Murphy came to the line. And, this is just in conjecture. I think probably Hunter Stalkup would have easily had over 300, maybe 350 yards if it had not been for a lot of the plays coming back. That negated it. I think a minimum 50 yards that I counted that came back. So and maybe even another touchdown or so. But and I know I think maybe even one was called back. But big night for the Murphy Bulldogs. But I was expecting a little bit more out of the Villains because I thought that they had a little more fortitude to move the ball. But it was just not a good night for them. And I think our analysis going into that one, where you look and say, well, they're a higher seed. They got here by being in kind of the whole thing with the split conferences, and they had. I think the better team was Murphy, and they probably should have been a higher seed than the Bishop should have probably been traveling to Murphy in that one. But that's for another discussion. But big one because you had Trenton Russell with a couple of touchdowns, Cameron Clem with a couple of touchdowns, and man, last time I was maybe a year or so ago when Hunter had scored 5, almost 6 touchdowns, which I think is like a record for the Murphy Bulldogs. Is it 6 or 7? I think we were trying to discuss that once upon a time. But anyhow.
Another game that kind of went the same way. The Maroon Devils went down to Bessemer City, and Josiah Glaspie ran all over Bessemer City. He had a career-high rushing yards, 207 yards on 15 carries and 2 touchdowns. Josh Collins had 109 yards on 12 carries and 2 more touchdowns, obviously setting up the rematch with Robbinsville, and we'll talk about Robbinsville's game in a minute. But with Swain County, it's good to see, Glaspie getting usage out of the backfield, especially with the rematch against Robbinsville coming up. That way you don't have to lean so heavily on Josh Collins. Everybody knows what Collins can do, but Glaspie, I think he has that second-level speed that can really set this team apart and really help them get deeper into the playoffs. I mean, an 81-yard touchdown run on the second play from scrimmage for Glaspie just really shows, how he can find that other gear and get out ahead of everybody.
And I think you're right. I mean, and I've been waiting for him to have like a big breakout type of night, and probably somebody said, well, don't you remember this game or whatnot? But I think that I've been wanting to see more Glaspie. If there was like a Saturday Night Live skit, we'd say more cowbell. I'd like to see more Glaspie because I think he's got like as you mentioned, he's got a lot of tools that can help the Maroon Devils. And then probably the case that we're eventually spiraling down to the analysis of if you're a Maroon Devil, how to get past the Robbinsville Black Knights. And this is probably one of the things to add to the bandwidth. But it's not something probably that the Lucas Fords and the D Washes don't know about. But it's they're definitely going to be zeroing in on Josh Collins. I mean, I would, but we'll get to that point. But I'm glad to see that Glaspie had that good night.
Yeah, breakout game for Glaspie, and then obviously in Graham County, Cutler Adams, he crossed the 100-yard mark once again, 112 yards and a touchdown. Chase Calhoun, 61 yards on 10 carries and 2 touchdowns. But more importantly, I think Donovan Carpenter is really coming along. He kind of had a breakout night, 5 for 5, 87 yards, 1 passing touchdown. And he also had 89 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. I think early in the first quarter, he had a 68-yard touchdown run. So Coach Walsh and the Black Knight staff getting him more involved. And just you talked about, what Swain can do differently Friday night to put up points. Robbinsville, if they get good quarterback play, they're going to put up points. And just great to see him, coming along. The interceptions have been a thing this year, but a 5 for 5 football game, I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. And Bryce Adams on the defensive side of the football for Robbinsville. Bryce Adams making a big push here at the end of the year for a defensive player of the year or even athlete of the year. I mean, he's up close, first or second in the conference in tackles, I believe. He had pick six on Friday night, and he also had a touchdown reception on Friday night. So he kind of a Swiss Army knife for the Black Knights. But from the middle linebacker position, I don't know that there's anybody better than him and what he does in the conference as far as directing traffic for that defense.
Jake, one of the things that I think of right now, and it's kind of off topic of Robbinsville, but and we can talk about this just a little bit later, but it is coming. The announcement of who's all conference, because they wait till everybody's out of the playoffs, so we have 3 remaining, and as far as like players of the year, or to me, any of the accolades that are put out there. This is a tough year because, especially with defense, we have so many really, really good players, and I think maybe like you're talking about Hayesville, that team has held some teams close. I mean, I think that there's some players there that you've got to look toward. Murphy's had some people that have come onto the line, as we mentioned there, and I think all the way around, when you're trying to stay in a ball game, Cherokee's got a few that you want to mention, but all the way through, this would be like the toughest thing to make any kind of determination. But on to the point of Robbinsville and Mountain Island Charter, wow, that one. Of course, you're playing on Thursday as opposed to Friday. Got a chance to just kind of peek in on that a bit. It's the idea here with that football game. That one got out of hand into the driver's seat for Robbinsville real quick. Only thing I was thinking as I was looking at that, it's like, man, late into that game, you still have your first string starters, into this football game. Yanked them out, but I was glad to see that there was some good work. Roman Jones, I believe, was one of the folks. Didn't he take over quarterback a little bit, or at least he was the relief pitcher in this football game. So I think there were some things here, but the same thing with the Robbinsville Black Knights. If you know that Rocky Dietz and Michael Watson and David Napier and everybody else is offering up some different schemes to Sherman Holt over in Swain County, you got to be doing the same thing in Robbinsville just a little bit. I know that there's always that philosophy. It's like, well, we'll play Robbinsville football and they'll play Swain football, but there has to be a little bit of a different scheme here because these are 2 evenly matched teams, and the only way to get ahead a little bit is to simulate something. So we're eventually getting ready to analyze that, but we'll talk about them in just a second. I don't want to get ahead of the game, so to speak.
Let's look at the bracket, and let's start out right here, game 55. We'll stop at the top half of the bottom part of the bracket. Very good football game. Number 3 seed Eastern Randolph hosting number 11 Thomasville. Thomasville, big 41-13 win over Albemarle. Eastern Randolph, 39-10 win over Hayesville. That put Hayesville's 2023 season to bed. A great season for the Yellow Jackets. It's sad to see, you've talked about all-conference players. It's sad to see one of the best all-conference, 4-year all-conference players, Taylor McClure. Sad to see his high school career come to an end, but we know that he will be playing football at the next level. But great season. Chad McClure did a great job with this team, and they are going to be reloaded, I think, coming back next year. They got Trey Graves and some other young pieces that I think are going to Hayesville may take another step forward next season in 2024. But talking about Eastern Randolph and Thomasville, what do you expect to see out of this one, Brandon?
Well, this is one where you higher seeded Eastern Randolph, and I think that Thomasville, when you look, and everybody's they knocked out Andrews, they knocked out Albemarle. Their trek to this point has, in my opinion, has not been the toughest. The Albemarle has not been the strongest team. I think that Thomasville has not played before the playoffs. They're 9-3, 4-2. They were 3rd in their conference, and I believe their schedule has not been that tough. So I think that this one is going to be an Eastern Randolph football game, definitely, because Eastern Randolph, they like to pass really well. They've got that big quarterback who's 6'4", 195, Carter Revell. Got about 2,300 yards on the season. He's posted up 28 touchdowns, and those are passing touchdowns. 7 rushing touchdowns that he scored himself. Now he likes to call his own number, but the bigger thing here is that is the line will just stop you. And I know that there's not. I don't. I think that with that tackle, Janai Norwood, he's committed to North Carolina. He's 6'4", 200 or 305 pounds. He's man-child. Everybody that I've when we were getting ready to go to Bishop McGinnis, I was talking to some coaches back in the Triad area. This is going to be Eastern Randolph is not the most special team that you'll ever run into, but they just have some really good athletes that can kind of outsmart you a bit. So I think it's a different Eastern Randolph team that like maybe Murphy met 2 years ago and probably Robbinsville met very recently. So I say, just to get to the point, Eastern Randolph takes this one because I think they're primarily the better team of these two. And to give you a number, I could almost see this one being like a 28-7 football game.
The computers say Eastern Randolph 31, Thomasville 22, so a 9-point football game, 73% chance of Eastern Randolph to win. But I agree with you, Brandon. I think Eastern Randolph playing good football, like you said, their line play is pretty dang good, and I think that score is pretty close, maybe 35-21, something like that. I think they're going to be able to put up points. Thomasville maybe scores later in the game, but I do think, like you mentioned, this is a different kind of Eastern Randolph team than we've seen our conference teams play recently. So I think Eastern Randolph will be advancing to the 4th round, and they will play the winner of Murphy and Mount Airy. Bulldogs gonna make the trip to Mount Airy to take on the Granite Bears. And I know you've got some insight for this one, Brandon, but there is a stigma that's following this Mount Airy team that the other team might as well not even show up. They've only allowed 25 points and things like that. But I think this will be the best team that Mount Airy's played this year.
Let's see. So they played Mitchell. That was a shutout there, and then so Mount Airy and Union, not a contest, 55-3. Well, Jake, you have to look into a couple different things. The defending state champions, that's number one. 1A state champions from 2022. They beat Tarboro. They beat the Tarboro out of Tarboro. And that one was like a 22-7 football game. I think they were playing in East Carolina that last year. The big thing here is the history, and it speaks volumes. And they're on a 26-game winning streak that dates back to like Labor Day of last year. When you look at the scoring alone, they've only been scored in double digits, and the double digits haven't been high. It's been like maybe 14, 17, 13, something in that range. But that's in those 26 games, there's only been 3 occurrences of that, and they've shut out teams at least 9 times. So of those 26 game winning streak, and I think East Surrey was the team that they lost to back in late August. So let's take a look into that. And the thing that I look at, or I want to really highlight, is that Mount Airy has won. There've been some not so good teams in that mix, more so than probably what you think. I believe that there are a ton of superstars. I was reading through it, and it's like there's a dandy on this team. And quite literally, Derek Dandy is a tight end, senior who's like 6'4", 221. He's committed to Virginia Tech. I believe Dandy will play in the Shrine Bowl, and he and also Tyler Mason, who was last year had 2,300 yards and 30 some touchdowns. He's got a similar, it's not quite as big this year. I think he's up to like 1,500 yards, but the season isn't over. And I've got one more to play. He's committed to Virginia Tech. There are two on this team that are committed to Virginia Tech. He'll play in the Shrine Bowl. And then you've got two with Walker Stroop, who's an outstanding flanker, wide receiver. He'll play in the East-West game. He'll get to see Hunter Stalkup, who will also get to play in that East-West. And I think Spencer Baldwin, who is he's the big guy. He's this big guy on the front line. He's a guard who's 6'7" and 254 pounds. On the other side, they've got a tackle. His name is Third Floyd, and he's a sophomore. And he's probably about as big around as he is tall. He's 5'11", 327 pounds. So aside from the young, this team is also kind of ones and zeros. And what I mean by that is they're either seniors or they're kind of like sophomores. And there are a few juniors sprinkled in between, just a little bit to fill in the gaps. But I can see that maybe in years to come, this is going to be a team that has good succession with at least the birthright coming in. There's going to be a lot of younger players who will come in and fill the shoes of some really big, iconic players who have a chance to go to the state championship again this year. But that brings up the Murphy Bulldogs. So the one thing that is everybody trying to push us into the corner to say that the Murphy Bulldogs just going to get beat and don't worry about playing this game. Like you say, that's why you play the game. I think that that was one thing that we heard 2 years ago. Don't even worry about going to Guilford County and playing against Eastern Randolph. There are some. I think there's some key things. It's how you scheme. But regardless of how you scheme this game, Jake, I think the Murphy Bulldogs will be literally cutting through some granite to get to the win, because this you can bend it, shape it, mold it, whatever that little it's almost like one of those little spy glasses that you got when you're a kid, and you can just like kind of move it back and forth. However you shape it, this is going to be a tough football game, and regardless, it's. I don't think this is going to be one where you probably see like Hunter Stalkup with 300 yards. That's the supposition, if Murphy wins this one, I think that this one's going to be very, very close. If it's won by Mount Airy, it's because maybe it really just got out of hand and it took off. I could see it of one of two ways. It's either going to be a real small margin of win for Murphy, or it could be like one of these that go into the record book, a notch on the belt for the Granite Bears, where they've got like a 55-7 or 55-15 type win. Take your pick, but I think you're right though. I don't think the Boo Birds who are sitting here saying that this is just going to be one that is just going to be a waste of fuel to go to Mount Airy. I think this one, this is what I like about teams, and Murphy's been in that situation, and been in it a couple times before. Yeah, they've had some cakewalk type walks, I would say, sometimes through the playoffs in the early stages of it, but always at this point. I mean, you got to admit, this is where the wheat and the chaff get separated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's one of the questions I was going to pose when we talk about Robbinsville and Swain. Will we see some rust out of Robbinsville and Swain in the opening quarter under the Big Oaks, because neither of the two teams have really had a challenge in the first two rounds of the playoffs. And Mitchell challenged Mount Airy in the first half last week, 7-0 ball game, and then Mitchell's running back goes out. Mitchell did that, kept it close in the first half due to just holding on to the football. And if Murphy is able to do that long, monotonous drives, the 81-yard Hunter Stalkup touchdown run is going to get you points on the board, and obviously you're not going to turn that down. But really, if you could get in the lab and curate perfect drives, it would kind of be what we saw Swain County do in the opening drive of the second half against Robbinsville, where they held onto the ball for like 10 minutes and 17 seconds, drove it all the way down the field. Now, that drive did not end up with points, but still, if you hold on to the football and you get points out of those long, monotonous drives, keeping the ball out of Tyler Mason's hands, that's the recipe for success for the Bulldogs in this one. And I'm sure you'll talk about that in your preview article that will be on our website, posted on our Facebook page. But it's going to be, like you said, a very, very tough game for Murphy to go into Mount Airy and come out with a win because of what we've seen the Granite Bears be able to do in back-to-back seasons. But they're still, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and that's why they play the game. Anybody can win in any given Friday night. So if Murphy is not lacking in bulletin board material going into this game, I'll tell you that. I saw a post on one of the message boards, will Murphy win, will Murphy score on Friday night? And I would about guarantee you Murphy will score on Friday night. This is going to be the best team Mount Airy's seen. They have played, Mitchell up until this point. Mitchell was the best team Mount Airy's played, and they held him to 7 points in the first half. Running back went out. Mount Airy ran away with it. But there is a game plan. Now, you do have to be perfect, and you do have to execute the game plan perfectly. But there is a game plan to beat Mount Airy. And talking with some of the coaches, the Murphy staff has spent a lot of hours finding that perfect game plan. And if the boys are able to execute it, this game will be a lot closer than people think. But I'm right there with you. If Mount Airy wins this game, it's going to be by a large margin. Murphy won't lose this game in a heartbreaker. If it's close, Murphy will gut out the win. If it is not close, then it's not going to be because Murphy ran away with it. It's going to be because the Granite Bears put 50 on them, and it's 50-21. But what's your final score prediction, Brandon, for this game? Who's going on to face the winner of Thomasville and Eastern Randolph?
All right. If I do this by the numbers, then that forces me to say, all right. So you're down to these points. I'll just do a preface by saying this. No, you don't want to ever cheer against or appear that way to putting it up against one of our Smoky Mountain Conference teams. As much as it's going to be a tough one when we ratchet over to the next bracket and say, who's going to win, Robbinsville or Swain? So in this one, I think the Murphy Bulldogs, it's probably not going to go their way. If you do this by the numbers, it's going to be a Mount Airy football game. And I think that there are possibilities for Murphy to jump in there and score. And God knows Jake, I want to be eating crow after saying this, but it's going to be like a 38 to probably a 14 football game, at least Mount Airy in that situation. What does the Ziggy say on your side over there?
It says Mount Airy 40, Murphy 24, and I think that's pretty accurate. 41, 28, something like that. But I do think Murphy is going to be able to score. I think Stockup's too talented of a running back to be completely bottled up on Friday night. And, for Murphy to be able to move the football against Mount Airy and to open up some of those running lanes for Stockup, they're going to have to lean on the passing game of Brady Grant and get Ryan Payne involved, get Zach Scogan involved, stretch the field a little bit. And that's a lot to ask of a first-year sophomore starting quarterback in Brady Grant to go down to Mount Airy and, be perfect. And Murphy has to be perfect. A turnover, and that could blow the game wide open. You have to be perfect. Clem's got to hold on to the football. Stalker's got to hold on to the football. Grant can't throw any interceptions. You've got to be perfect. So that's going to be. No, go ahead.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you there. The only thing I'd say there is that no, I think that's the one thing about the historic part of Murphy football is that we've always picked up some, uh, at least for the past 15 years, we picked up some young quarterbacks. Seth Curtis that came along, Michael Curry, Joey Curry. Several that have come in to serve, and probably a little bit because you expect the starting quarterback to either be a junior or a senior. And, I digress to say I don't know that I recall in recent times a freshman jumping into that role. But hey, the guys who jump into that driver's seat, that's a big role to play, especially in Murphy. Not to downplay like, okay, well, it's not as more important to do that in Robbinsville or Bryson City or Cherokee or any other place, but just knowing how that works there. Those quarterbacks, they take on the role, but I think you're totally right. You're going to have to simulate some different types of speed. You're going to have to open up some doors. The old adage that says, run the ball to open up the pass. You may have to pass to open up the run in this case, but I don't know that door may open very wide in this case because these guys are good. I'm not going to take anything away from the Mount Airy Granite Bears. I dare say that through that because this is a 50 front, and if people know what I'm talking about, that's like 5 men on the front, and then could have a 60 look, so 6 men lining up against Murphy. And it's going to appear like every man is going to be close in on the box. So they're not going to let daylight come through the middle of that line. And they've got the skills to do it. But meanwhile, they've got to watch the corners and look for that pass, that Ryan Payne. And of course, this is where you kind of miss Will Shore and some folks like that. And Scogan, we're going to have to. I think that's one opportunity too to zip one out to these guys and look for that option too. To if you can't run him from the backfield, put old 28 there on one of the corners and let him run after a pass or get him on a slip screen or a bubble screen somewhere on the sides. But I think that you're probably right there to get around these guys. Will they be looking for it? Yeah, they've got some. Again, Mario Revels, who's one of the corners, he's good. He's got his fair share of interceptions. And looking at my research there, anyhow.
Last thing, I've said it twice already, but literally the one thought, in my brain, if Murphy wants to win this football game, you have to be perfect. Coach Watson needs to be preaching the Coach Boone speech from Remember the Titans, be perfect in every aspect of the game. You drop a pass, you run a mile, miss a blocking assignment, run a mile, fumble the football, and I'll break my foot off in your John Brown hind parts, and then you'll run a mile. That's what needs to be happening. That's what should have been happening for the past week at practice for the Bulldogs. But
well, and in this case, he's going to break his foot off in their John Brown hind parts as they go to the house if you don't.
Yeah.
Because this is it.
Yeah.
This is the put up, shut up, do or die, and win in advance. So there ain't no more after this for 2023. So that's the big one here.
Moving along, we'll talk about the game that sets up for the winner of Swain and Robbinsville, and then we will end with Swain and Robbinsville. Mountain Heritage and North Rowan, a great football game. Should be 5 versus 4, I believe. Yeah, 5 versus 4 at North Rowan. And let's see. I was gonna see the prediction really quick. Mountain Heritage 31, North Rowan 28.
I was going to give. I think that, and I've got my reasons for this, but I think it's more like a 21-17, and I give this one favor to Mountain Heritage, and I've got my reasons for saying that.
Yeah, well, that's pretty close to the computer, but you see the upset happening here as Mountain Heritage goes to North Row, and how come?
Well, one, I think just cutting to the chase, so to speak. This is Mountain Heritage is just a better team. I think they played some better. Part of it I base on they played some better ball games, but they've not just played better teams and got their tail beat, but they played them close. Jake, I mean, these are some teams that are still in the running. For instance, like you play Chase and you only lose by 3. That's a good team. You play Robbinsville. Now that one's 28-17, and it's not that far of a drive from Burnsville to Spencer. That's where North Row End calls home. They're both 10-2. The thing that I like is that they've got diversity. It's just and this is a team that it's almost like they get you in that Roach Motel of Football Valley over there. It might be a little different that they or that the hole that they play in at Burnsville. But I like Brandon Quinn. He's a junior quarterback. Man, he's put up some decent passing. There's at least 33 touchdowns that have come out of that guy, either from passing or making some things on the run. Now, Quinn likes to run himself. He'll call his own number quite a lot, but got a couple, like a junior and a sophomore in behind him. But these guys are big and they're skilled. North Row End, I don't think one that they played that tough of a schedule. I don't see the effects coming out. They've got a good guy. There's Alexander is his last name. He's big guy, 6'4", 205, 10 touchdowns on the season. I believe even though they've got the lead, there's more of a diversity with the Heritage, Mountain Heritage going in. The Cougars can probably outman, and I think with looking at who they've got and what I can tell, there might be just a slight outmanning of Mountain Heritage and the abilities there. I think when it comes right down to it, Cavaliers are not going to be able to hold Mountain Heritage. This one's going to come up where Mountain Heritage will face that winner. And I say 21-17 Mountain Heritage.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little more separated than that. I think, the Cavaliers have a good win against Thomasville, 16-12. They have a not so good win against TW Andrews. They won that game 20-14. South Davidson 20-14. So they played in some tough games, some close, tough games, and been able to come away with a victory. Even that game against Lexington, 21-14. But they allowed Corbian Community to score 34 points, which, not taking anything away from Corbian Community. Corbian Community pulled off the upset in the first round against Drawn, but I just think Mountain Heritage is going to be too much, and maybe this game is 2 scores, 28-14, something like that. Now, I'm not a North Row and football expert by any means, but I think that the boys in Burnsville have really turned it on as of late. It's not the same team that faced Robbinsville. Now, Robbinsville's not the same team that faced Mountain Heritage either at this point in the season, but they kept it close against Robbinsville early in the season, and Robbinsville's a better team than North Row, and I think Mountain Heritage wins this ball game 28-14, something like that.
I think so, and just again, yeah, you mentioned that there's some tough games, but I think to clarify my point is that tough games meaning close games with North Row. Tough games, no, not necessarily. This is not the toughest schedule that you'll ever play, and I think that's what makes it for me is that Corvin Community. No, they're not the toughest team that you're going to face all season, and I think there's some. That's what I was looking to see that again. Some records, I dig into some of the teams that they were playing, and it didn't impress me as much. So that's why I give the push to Mountain Heritage. But I just think that Mountain Heritage has got a few more tools in the toolbox to get past North Row End.
So we're down to the big one. Number 1 versus number 9. Robbinsville, Swain County. 6-point ball game. Last time these two teams faced each other in the Smoky Mountain Conference Championship. It's going to be under the Big Oaks once again. Robbinsville's 6th straight home game, fifth or sixth, something like that. I don't know, but I'll have a preview article about this game out probably by the time you're watching this show. But Maroon Devils, Black Knights, close football game. Last time, low scoring, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it's not going to be low scoring. And this one, I think more points are going to be put up. The rain looks like it's moving out. And I think both of these teams are too well coached for the same 14-8 football game to replay. I think the offense is good. Both offenses are going to figure something out coming into this one.
This is just one of those. It's like everybody is just so close in what they do. So do we need to break down Cutler Adams' work? Do we need to break down Josh Collins' work? I think we've mentioned. There's some new kids on the block, so to speak. I mean, when you have Josiah Gillespie doing some of the things he's doing, I mean, and there's some other people that are showing their skills in different places. Bryce Adams. I mean, both these teams have skills. So let's jump around and see what has happened. This is where I think that sometimes something just magical happens. You look at a Murphy Robbinsville setup. Murphy just goes up there to Big Oaks, gets just the rear handed to him in regular season. Go back in the playoffs and just mow past the Robbinsville Black Knights. Historically, when you look at it, in certain cases, your gut almost tells you that Robbinsville does well the first time. Well, first of all, it's always tough to play somebody twice, and it's not like this is high school basketball where you definitely play somebody twice at their place and at your place, and then you may face them in the conference tournament championship or something like that, and then you play them in the playoffs. You play them 4 times. No, this is football. And this is tough to play somebody twice. But I think if just going by that, and I think that there were a lot of hurt folks who went back to Bryson City that first time, and I don't think they're going to let that happen. They're going to be scheming to make this one happen. Whether they have to change up and run that 3-man backfield and just run the veer like they know how, or get a couple of good passes out there. But something tells me this one. I think you're right. This could be a touchdown derby, though. I don't think it's going to be that they're going to sideline Cutler Adams or they're going to sideline Josh Collins or Josiah or any of the others that you see running out there. My feeling here is on this one, there's going to be a little bit different play that will definitely have to come into this one. And there'll be a little something that comes out. I tend to believe that Swain County comes away with this one and advances. This one is, and it could be a heartbreaker for Robbinsville, but it's really so tough when you have everything on paper. They score 31 points. This scores 31 points average. They allow 9 points. This one allows about 13 points. It's so breaking all those things down, the same teams that they played, how tough did they play them, the running backs, the quarterbacks. It's such a similar thing. I think that, as you were saying, this is where you've got to play perfect football. So who has those more penalties, a few miscues, a fumble, an interception? That's all it's going to take, and that's going to rip a seam. And I think all the water in the swimming pool is going to come out on somebody when that happens. And any little crevice is going to give the other one. And I think here, this one, something in me, this one, where I will say I'm going to play soothsayer and say, oh, this is Swain County. But now let me figure out a score here, because I think this is, as you say, this one probably is going to be a higher scoring. And for some reason, those second games in Robbinsville, they've typically been a little more higher scoring.
I think the only way I'm on the flip side. I think Robbinsville wins this game, and I think they could win it going away. But the only I mean, I think there are ways both teams can win this game. Obviously, we saw the defenses flex their muscles in the first time out. But the way that Swain County wins this football game is through Reese Winchester. Winchester is going to have to be able to make plays with his legs and with his arm if Swain County is going to keep Robbinsville's defense on their toes. You can't, you've got to complete passes at a better clip than you have been recently. I think, one of the things in my article that I'm going to talk about is the recent success of the offense for Swain County and how they've been able to put up points. 47 points in the first round, 42 points in the second round. But you've got to complete passes at more than a 44% clip than Swain County. That's what Swain County did against Robbinsville the first time out. Winchester was 4 for 9, 33 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. You've got to be able to move the ball through the air more efficiently than that. Now, you mentioned the 3-man backfield, bringing in Collins and Glaspie and maybe somebody else. Maybe they go into an I formation and try to run the football. That did not work against Robbinsville last time. 22 carries for Josh Collins, 69 yards in that matchup, 3 yards per carry for Glaspie and Collins. They were missing that big play breakaway ability, and hopefully Glaspie will be able to bring that to the table. His confidence should be up at following their game against Bessemer City and what he was able to do in that one. So hopefully for the Maroon Devils, he'll be able to get loose around the edge. And we saw it on the pick six. Cutler Adams in space, nobody can catch him. Josiah Glaspie in space, nobody can catch him. And I think that could be the case Friday night. If either team is able to get both those guys in space, you need the big play. 3 yards in a cloud of dust is not going to get it done. 14-8 is not. You're not going to win that game if you're Swain County. You need to find a way to make big plays. And the turnovers, my Lord, the turnovers with Swain County. I was looking back doing some research. How many games has Swain County played turnover free this year, Brandon? If you were to guess.
That's probably and I'm being kind of sarcastic, but that's probably not too far off the mark. And that's where
they played one game.
Really?
Again, the first game against Avery, the first round playoff game against Avery County was the first game they played all year where they have not turned the football over, and they're going to have to repeat that on Friday night under the Big Oaks if they want to win this football game. Now, on the flip side of that, Robbinsville wants to win this game. They just have to. They've got everything in front of them. Swain County really is the team that comes into this game, I think, with nothing to lose. Robbinsville has everything in front of them. They're going to match up with the team they already know they can beat probably in Mountain Heritage in the next round. And then they'll be cemented into the region championship again for what seems like the millionth time. Swain County comes into this game. They don't know what's ahead of them. Robbinsville knows they've got a good, clear path to the Western Regional Championship game. Hosting all of these home games, they're going to host the Western Regional Championship game at home. So Robbinsville just has to keep, head down, eyes up. They've got to keep just doing what they're doing. I know you mentioned, everybody talks about, well, Swain's going to play Swain County football. Robbinsville's going to play Robbinsville football. Robbinsville just needs to play Robbinsville football. Feed the pig that is Cutler Adams. Let him run the football. If you get another 5 for 5 night out of Donovan Carpenter with no turnovers and 80 to 100 yards through the air, that's a wrap. That's Robbinsville moving on to the fourth round.
I just want to bring up one thing. You do mention that a Reese Winchester or a Donovan Carpenter, how they have to move and maybe simulate a little bit of other power, a few other tools in the toolbox for the offense. Sure, I believe that. But that does not occur. And I think one of the key things here, and you don't want to necessarily jump straight into it. And I think that again, you can counterpoint, but one of the keys here for me in saying what I say is that I think that there will be a better job that Swain County will probably do on the front line, because I think that in the last little works defense, they probably have a better line, and I think that's where this really will break down. And it's as cliched as all can be, but games are won and lost in the trenches. But in this case, when you've got you go from Cole Weichel to, I've got them in front of me, N.C. Ufert, Grady Lewis, and Drew Skaggs, and Andreas Cisneros. Those guys are, and a lot of times they'll flip over to the other side and play Ironman football as they do. But one, a little outweighed. The line is, I don't want to, say this in a mean way, but it's like that's been one of the worries, or one of the areas of work that probably Robbinsville has had to make headway on. But as you were saying, be perfect, come to the line, block, protect, penetrate, do what you got to do. But I think that Swain County line here may do a little bit extra work that Robbinsville does, and that's going to be the big key to giving the success of what you're saying, if that makes sense. I think it bears weight more. The load bearing piece to this whole house of cards is in the line here, and I think that's where there's a little bit more strength in Swain County, and if they'll do their job, then I think what I'm kind of saying, and I've kind of drawn it up in the sand, I think that it's like a 36-35, what I'm stumbling around to say is it'll be like a 36-31 win Swain County. It'll be in that margin, in that neighborhood, and I think there's a possibility you could probably even see 70 points scored in this football game. I think it'll be back and forth, but that may not be the case if the line does their work, and that's as elementary as you can get. But I think that's where it breaks down.
You mentioned Robbinsville's line kind of being their weak spot. I will say this, they have two key elements that make up for their quote unquote weaker line play. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously Cutler Adams makes up for the weaker line play. On the defensive side of the ball,
if you can speed through it, you don't have to block for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. On the defensive side of the ball, if they have a weak defensive line showing, their linebacking core makes up for that. Their linebacking core is disgusting. What they are able to do and the way they're able to, keep running backs and quarterbacks from getting to that next level, and being able to find that second level speed, like I said earlier, is amazing. Coach Ford and those guys have done a great job coaching up and scheming up this defense, and I don't think the linebackers get talked about enough. So I think they do have ways to get around that, and they've done a great job of scheming that up. But I think I'm more so going to say 21-7. I just haven't seen enough out of Swain County's offense to have much faith in them. And I mean, the Robbinsville defense is playing great football right now. So I think, it could go another way, but we've got two completely different predictions on this, how this one will happen. And probably neither one of them will come true somehow. That's how wrong we've been all year.
In all cases, I wish that on this one you could eat a little crow for both teams, because you want to see all these Smoky Mountain Conference teams roll through. I wish there was I wish it was Christmas for everybody. It just doesn't work that way. And I hate that it rolls down to this one. You'd like to, all right, well, if a Murphy, if a Swain, if a Robbinsville, if a Hayesville, whoever's at this point gets put out, it's by another team way down in the Piedmont or up in the northern mountains or something like that puts you out. But not one of your neighbors. And that's the harder part to it. But it does make for some exciting football to come back and always have that rematch and see some old rival friends. So and that one, enjoy that one. This one should, and looking at the weather for all these, Jake. Last week was kind of cruddy, although we need the rain in Western North Carolina. The rainy, the cold doesn't seem like it's going to be that way. It'll be a little bit warmer and maybe a little overcast. But so, does that make any difference? You always look at every little thing. The weather, is it windy? Did this team wear longer cleats, and did their mama kiss them goodbye before they left the house and got on the bus? I don't know. But it looks like it'll be pleasant to watch some football on Friday night.
Yeah, I hope so. But I can guarantee you this: there will be at least one Smoky Mountain Conference team playing next week. So we'll be back to talk and BS around next week at least one more time. So, Brandon, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we see some good close football games on Friday night.
Yep. Go all Smoky Mountain Conference teams, obviously. It's the best they can.